We are looking to understand art and its changes, its cultural context, its history, and in a variety of ways. Art history is the analysis of material culture, a look at actual objects. One of the most important tools of the art historian, and the one that I will be emphasizing this semester, is formal analysis. This is analyzing what an object looks like and why. In other words, the analysis of its form. Formal analysis breaks down an object and considers its visual impact, interpreting the object itself in its own terms. This allows us to compare objects and draw conclusions about art, history, and culture in a variety of ways. For an example, let's look at the Mona Lisa. Most people are familiar with this painting, and that it was done by Leonardo da Vinci sometime during an era we call the Renaissance. However, by just looking at the Mona Lisa, we can prove undeniably that this painting was done sometime around the year 1500 without even knowing who painted it, just by relying on the information the object itself provides. When we look at the Mona Lisa, what do we see? A young woman, done with almost photographic precision, against a beautiful, fantastic landscape. The woman is in a black costume, fashionable for a certain period of time, and is pushed up against the picture plane. In other words, she's very close to you. The scene behind her is very far away, fading off into misty blue. The picture was executed by building up layers of oil glazes on canvas. If I had the picture in hand, I could even tell you the canvas was at some point trimmed. What do these facts tell me? Well, the fashionable lady is clearly dressed in a manner consistent with Italy around the turn of the 15th to 16th century, say around 1495 to 1505. We know this by considering her shaved eyebrows and hairline, her veil, her general costume. In some portraits, we can even look at jewelry, which can be very informative. However, the absence of it in this portrait is also very telling, since the values of the merchant classes for modesty in this period would be consistent with a lack of such ostentation. The fact that we see the lady dominating the foreground of the picture is consistent with portraits of the same period as well. What we have just done is called motif analysis. What is a motif? Very simply, a motif is what is depicted. It is the subject. We can use motif for the overarching subject of the work, or just a single element, or even an element that appears over a variety of works. We often use motif as a label for smaller vignettes within a composition, and the word subject to refer to the object as a whole. For example, we can discuss the motif of the female figure, but also that the subject of these works is a woman. Here, spirals is a motif, but with the Book of Kells, the subject is Christianity and cosmos. With the Chimeras ware, it's actually the motion of the cosmos. We can even discuss the vegetation motif seen all over the world, but in this painting the subject is the garden, and the motif of trees, birds, and flowers gives us that idea of the garden. Studying these smaller vignettes and overall subjects is the focus of motif analysis. Returning to our Mona Lisa, we have looked at what is depicted and concluded that it is consistent with the turn of the century around 1500. Although this method of formal analysis can be useful and important, it cannot stand alone. Perhaps you've seen those old-timey photos where one dresses up in 19th century clothes and gets a photo taken? Could this not be a lady in a fancy dress party pretending to be from an earlier time period? Or could the painting be a copy of an earlier picture? This is a very common problem, telling originals from later fakes or even respectful copies, for example, a poster in your bedroom. Could we be attempting to depict a person from the past whom we admired? For example, a dollar bill still shows George Washington in colonial costume, even though the actual bill was printed later and the engraving made for the bill is much later than the colonial period. As to the format of the piece, the composition, showing the lady dominating the foreground, this was a common way of showing portraits at various time periods. For example, in Pompeii, we have this excellent portrait of the lady dominating the foreground. This painting was done around the year 70 AD. So although motif analysis can be useful information for supporting our theories about an object and our interpretations of it, it cannot stand alone as a method. We must have other tools and look at more about the painting. So what else can we analyze in order to draw conclusions about an object? We can examine how an object looks, or its style. If motif or subject is what is depicted, then style is how it's depicted. Many variables work into discussing style, and a wide variety of terms. Some of the most common terms are abstract, naturalistic, and realistic. When we talk about an object as abstract, we mean that it diverges from showing an object as it would appear in nature. All art on some level is an abstraction. It's a representation of the art. In this example, we see a bull and 3 people, which are clearly abstract. If we met these people in the street, they would look strange indeed. They are too tall and thin, and they look very flat. This is because the figures are elongated to give them a sense of elegance, and painted in flat colors and lines, rather than depicting the modulations of surface and texture of skin and fabric. The point of abstraction is to simplify the form, to stylize it, and thus emphasize ideas rather than exteriors. Naturalism and realism are words that are often used interchangeably in common language. However, for art history there is a subtle difference between them that can make these actually useful terms. Naturalism has to do with depicting objects as they appear in nature. In this example, we see the modulations of surface, the reflection of light, the curves and twists that peaches and water and glass would have if they were on a table before us. The artist has taken care to infuse the depiction with a sensitivity to the way real peaches and water look, and to give us a clear idea of peachness and waterness. Realism is showing the realities of the world. Realism moves beyond what things look like, to engage what things are like. In this example, we see the weary boxer, his face scarred, his clothes hanging off his body, in a way that shows sensitivity not only to the human body, the laws of physics, and in the sense of mass and volume and the pull of gravity on the fabrics, and the idea of personness. It also shows a sensitivity to the realities of human condition and the condition of the boxer. The artist creates a sense of not just being, but what it means to be, in this case to be a boxer in ancient Greece. Style analysis is far more accurate than motif analysis because it takes into consideration how an object is made, what techniques and devices were used to create the object, and what value judgments were made. Stylistic analysis can be used to determine not only the date of an object, but can help determine where an object was made, and even if it was exported for use elsewhere, and even who made the object. Returning to the Mona Lisa, we can say a great deal about the style and make many conclusions. I will just point out a few. The use of the oil glazes creates a sense of modeling and light that is almost unique to Leonardo da Vinci. Certainly the sense of naturalism bordering on downright illusion is something that permeates the art of the Renaissance. This painting acts as if it was a window into another world. The figure is so naturalistically conceived that she almost seems to breathe. The use of light is also significant. Our Lady is highlighted so she seems to glow, and the background is lit carefully to give a sense of distance. By fading into misty blue, something called atmospheric perspective, the painting gives us a sense of great depth and space. The use of diagonals, like the path to the left of the Lady's shoulder, adds to this sense of space. Although the landscape is completely imaginary, the careful modeling of the rocks, the use of texture, and the use of mist are intended to give it a sense of naturalism as well. The Lady herself is seated, slightly turned, so that she creates a triangle dominating the front of the image. This makes her very stable and powerful. She also looks out at you, engaging her viewer, which also gives her a sense of power and personality. All of these subtle choices and devices point not only to Italy, but to the year 1500 and to Leonardo da Vinci. In fact, the Mona Lisa was painted by Leonardo da Vinci between 1503 and 1505, probably in Milan, Italy.